Arizona. I am a boxing trainer and small business owner in the state of Arizona, and I'm here to talk to Karen about all the wonderful things and not so wonderful things that I've had to endure as an entrepreneur.
Wait, I'm so glad we're doing this because it's been, I guess we've known each other now for a little over almost 2 years, maybe. I don't know. It
Is it
feels like
two or
time is
is it
flying.
three? I feel like it's
It
closer to
might be
three, to be
three,
honest with
actually. It might be
you. Yeah,
three. That's so crazy. You're right. It is three. So,
yeah.
for folks listening in, I don't really know how to sit still. And so when I was traveling back to Arizona while I was training for my boxing match that I did a while back, I immediately started Googling, where do I go? Like, how do I maintain my training? And this gym popped up to me in Arizona. We'll talk a little bit about it in a second. But I was like, all right, let me go check it out. Let me see what's up. And then we met, and it turns out that you have DC roots, and
I
we
do.
clicked immediately. And fast forward now, every time I come home, you are an absolute stop, and I enjoy our time so much. And it's been so nice to get to know you and see how you've kind of carried your business over the few years that we've known each other. So, really excited to have this conversation. Before we go too far, we have to know, how did you end up in boxing?
Well, the short story is I started martial arts when I was 5 years old, and I did that up until my freshman year of high school, and then I started playing football. There was no more martial arts, so I did that for 4 years, all throughout high school. Took a year off, decided I was going to go back to football, and then finally, when I figured out I wasn't going to do football anymore, I went back to martial arts. So I started in
Mhm.
kickboxing, had some great trainers, and I moved to Los Angeles in 2007. And I didn't have a kickboxing instructor to go to. And I had a buddy of mine who was going to Wildcard quite often. I met a couple of the trainers and a couple of the fighters there, and I decided to start boxing. So in 2007, when I moved to LA, I started boxing.
And I'm tempted to ask, why did you move to LA? But I don't know if we want to like go
Uh,
into too much of the other additional side stories that, are kind of tied
listen,
back
my
to who you
story is
are as a
what makes
person.
me. Uh, yeah, well, my story, my story, and my experience is what makes every individual, right? So
Right.
uh, we are the sum of all of our life experiences, good or bad.
So
So
true.
I moved to Los Angeles as part of a career change, what I would consider to be an elevation, right, or promotion in the industry that I was in. Um, I
Mhm.
feel blessed and honored. I mean, to be honest with you, my entire life looking back over it, I feel like I've had some truly remarkable experiences and interactions with people and companies and entities. And um, and I know that some things are controversial or not considered, PC, or some things are taboo. But, I worked for a company that is considered by many to be an American icon. It's a world known brand. I had a great position in that company, although I hated the company. And we can not name the company, but if we don't need to. But
Let's not name it.
it also helped form my ideals, and it helped form the basis of what I believe a business should be and how it should be run and how it should service its community and its customers.
Yeah. Well, and so you're out in LA, you pick up boxing after many years of sort of being detached from mixed martial arts or martial arts. And you kind of just fall back in love with it. I mean, it's so clear for anybody that I think spends time with you that you love the sport. So what does that journey look like for you? How do you fall in love with boxing and sort of become down the path of where we are today?
So I think my love for martial arts, mixed martial arts, boxing, uh, combat sports in general, is based on what was a childhood obsession with Shaw Brothers movies back in the day. So I had this, obsession with Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and old kung fu movies, ninja movies. I loved martial arts. And I started training when I was 5, and that passion and that love has just grown over the years. And honestly, I really think that I love what boxing has done for me as a person, and I've
Mm,
loved what it's allowed me to do for other people and with other people. um, the good and the bad, the wins and the losses of my friends who are professionals, the wins and the losses in life of my clients, the ability to be a healthy outlet for them when they're going through things. It's
Hmm.
very it's an extension of who I am as a person. I believe I have some empathic, traits where I feel what people are, going through sometimes when they step through my door, and depending on how the
Hmm.
energy I get from them, it helps in what I do. And I think it's been kind of transformative for me and for my clients, and that's the joy that I get out of it.
Hmm. I would absolutely second that. I think you do in some way have like some like empathic energies. There's definitely times that I've walked into your gym and you're like, like what's going on? Like, are you okay? And like we see each other, multiple times a year, but it's like there's lots of time in between. And obviously I'm fairly public about a lot of things that I go through and what have you. But for sure, I mean, there's something there where I just think it's like an easy thing and a good way to connect. I feel like we could put a pin right now and just sort of go back really quick. When you think about like you as a little version of yourself, you just kind of like shared the story of like being kind of into these movies and Bruce Lee and like all of these like kung fu moments, etc. Is that what sort of when you think back to your little version of yourself, is that what you wanted to like do when you grew up? Or was there like a completely different narrative that you were telling yourself as a kid about what you wanted to be when you grew up?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. But
Look at you
then
now.
I yeah, but then I realized that I hate flying, and I'm not great with complicated math.
Okay, so we
So
quickly
those two things kind of put put the
put a
brakes on
damper on
that.
things,
Skirt, skirt.
I would imagine. I just like I like to talk about that. I think it's just an interesting place to just understand where people's heads were at when they were little versus where they are today. I mean, you obviously love what you do today. So you begin down the path of like, boxing and you start to pick up on these parts of you that are sort of being, I don't know, like they're firing off like, oh, okay, yes, the sport. This is where I am, combat sports. I love it. How do we get to the place where we are today, which is being a business owner and actively bringing boxing to other individuals? I mean, that is like a pretty significant transition from being somebody that boxes themselves to wanting to teach others. There's a lot that goes into that, really honing in on some of like the parts of you that obviously you wanted to shine and like let out. But also it's that transition of like, you know, there's a level of confidence you have to have in being able to all of a sudden now teach other people how to defend themselves or how to bring themselves into dangerous situations, which in reality, that's what all combat sports are, right? They're dangerous situations that can be done beautifully and very thoughtfully. But for people that think like, oh, boxing's like whatever, it's a dangerous sport. It full stop. And you take a lot of ownership over the people you put in the ring. It's not something that should be
Yes.
done haphazardly. There are people that do it haphazardly, right? There's coaches,
Yes.
even I've had so many conversations about coaches that are like, "Yeah, just go spar, whatever." No, that's like not how you do it because there's someone's brain and body on the line. But how do you get from
Right.
being somebody that picks up combat sports again and then all of a sudden fast forward, we're in Arizona now and now you own your own business.
Okay. So I'm going to give you the short version of the story. Okay.
Got you.
Um, no, no. I mean, I'm gonna cliff notes this for you. When I moved to LA in
Okay.
'07, I had a great job with a corporate company. I stayed there for 2.5 years and then I quit. I went to work for another
And
company that was kind of a partnership mom and pop thing. Didn't work out really well for me. And at the same time, um, I got sick. I was taking
mhm,
jujitsu, um, and I was not really liking my job, another combat sport. I gotten into jujitsu. I was
mhm,
still boxing and kickboxing. Um, and then I ended up having surgery. I had a little cancer scare. So I had surgery.
mhm,
And at that time, I really got into this kind of like homeopathic energy, what you put out, what you get, right? And I didn't want to be where I was in life in certain places. So I ended up sleeping on my boy's couch, right? And
mhm,
during that process, I'm healing from surgery. I've quit this job, which was very lucrative. I'm starting over from zero, right? And I happen to go to a kickboxing tryout for the K1 championships in Venice. and I ran into
Mm.
a bunch of people that I used to train with, right? So one of my coaches was Rick Rufus, 10-time world champion kickboxer. Walter Wakalski, who runs the Sitiadong Muay Thai gym in Los Angeles, who I trained at a couple of times.
Sure.
Aaron Pickett, a bunch of guys that I trained with, I ran into. And then I happened to run into a guy in LA that I knew from LA that I trained at a gym with. And he said, "Hey, man, we're hiring at the gym for kids' classes." And I was like, "Oh,
Mm.
really?" I needed a job, right? So it's funny because my aha moment was, it wasn't just one, it was several, right? It was like, I
Sure.
love kickboxing. I love boxing. I've been doing it since I was 5. I'm 30 something years old now. I have an opportunity to maybe get some income. So I went and took this job
Sure.
teaching kids classes like twice a week, right? And shout out to Barbara and Lawrence. They're going to see this. They watch everything I do. They gave me a job, and then I just sat down and started learning, much like I did with boxing and kickboxing, from the person who was in front of me, everything that I could
Fun.
about the business, right? Learned about the pitching, the sales, and the KPIs, and selling memberships, and wrapping hands, and all the business parts of it. And I went from teaching 2 classes a week to teaching 15, 16 classes a week, and then helping manage the front desk. And then I worked
A
for Barbara
grind.
and Lawrence for a few years. Yeah, just the grind. Like, it was the grind every day. I worked for Barbara and Lawrence for quite a few years. They sold the business to another couple. I ended up leaving that gym and striking out on my own in 2016. And that was really where I had to not only grind, but I had to build the confidence to think that I could do this on my own. And it
Sure.
was more about survival as opposed to, trying something because you really wanted it. No, I had to do it, right? I slept in my car in LA for 3.5, 4 months. Um,
Mm-hmm.
while I was training clients at the gym, I would shower at the gym and go to one gym. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I always tell this funny story is, there was a movie years ago called Down and Out in Beverly Hills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just all these people in Beverly Hills who lost all their money and they had to, whatever. But I literally had a client, and I hate name dropping, so I won't, but I had a very famous client who lived in Bel Air, and I
Sure.
had him sometimes twice a week at 7 a.m. in the morning at his house. So I would
Mm-hmm.
sleep down the road in Bel Air from his house, set my alarm, and wake up and walk to his house and train him. And then I would go to the gym and shower and do the rest of my day. And I did that for
Right.
several months, right? And that's what happened. And then finally I started getting more client, I started getting more traction, started making more money, got a place to live, and then things started happening. And I was pretty set. And then in
Right.
Phoenix, I had a buddy in Phoenix who had a gym, and he was having some trouble. So I said to him, "Hey, if you need some help, I'll come help you." And this is where the story gets longer, but I'm going to keep it short. I came to Phoenix in 2018 to help him out, and
Yeah.
push comes to shove, the business was in dire need of an overhaul. So I did what I could.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the pandemic happens in 2020. Things take place, and I end up taking over the business by myself in October of 2020. So I was here for 2 years working,
Right.
quote unquote, with someone else. And then I am taking over my gym in 2020 and, running it now to what it is, and now moving into the next, you know, evolution of what, my gym will be, looking at a new space, 4,000 square feet in the heart of Scottsdale, and trying to really establish ourselves as the gym to go to for boxing, as opposed to the
Mm-hmm.
gym to go to pretend you're boxing. Um,
Right.
and really to make an
Which is a whole
environment
nother
that's,
discussion. Whole nother
yeah,
conversation
and
we could have.
yeah, it is all with it. But essentially, I got here because it was started out as a necessity to live, a need to eat, um, but it was something that I actually liked doing, and I got a lot of return out of it. I got a lot of happiness. I got a lot of joy. I got a lot of satisfaction out of seeing my clients progress or work through whatever their issues were or make the gains that they wanted to do, right? And that really felt good. And it allowed me to make some
Yeah.
really killer friendships and partnerships.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't think we should skate over the fact that your story is unique to yourself, but very similar to a lot of other people that are trying to create something from like literally nothing, right? Just a skill set and understanding that there's something that's calling you to a space. And I think oftentimes people don't always understand just what kind of grind is associated with providing a service similar to the one that you provide. Fitness is not as luxurious as I think people think sometimes it is. And I know it always depends on the market that you are in or whatever the case may be. But like Los Angeles, for instance, you're a personal trainer, right? You're training somebody that lives in Bel Air, whatever the case may be. Somebody somewhere is receiving that and being like, how chic, like how nice. Your hours must be so convenient. You must not like have to like worry about that. Ugh, being secured to a desk. It's its own unique grind. Like everybody's
No,
path and everybody's journey is unique to themselves, but like a lot of people go through that where they're like, I'm just really passionate about what I do and what I love, and I know that I'm good at this, but like it doesn't just come overnight. We live in a society now that I think everyone thinks everything's just immediate, and the reality is like it does take time, and it's not something that just like happens. So kudos to you for obviously staying vigilant and like staying with it and just knowing that this is like something that was like felt like a calling to you, and then enabled you to kind of get to this next part of your story, which is coming into the Phoenix Scottsdale area, which cost of living is way better. Definitely at the time 2022, I mean, we've seen a massive boom in Arizona since the pandemic because the doors stayed open and everybody else's doors were closed, but you had people moving from all various states and so forth. But I mean, regardless, to be able to even endure that type of tension in the process as well is like a big deal. Like to be able to endure a pandemic and be a gym owner is another really, really intense thing. And then I know, enter me, I basically show up in your life right around this like 2021-ish time, I think.
yeah.
Maybe 20, yeah, somewhere in there, right? And at that time, I know that your story gets even more like complex in terms of the business that you had and your partnership that you had, et cetera. And you've stayed so vigilant throughout the entire process. I know a lot of that comes up from what you stated of having like all these various aha moments that kind of keep you on the path of like knowing that this is the right thing for you. But is there like one specific instance that like you keep coming back to, which was, whatever you believe in, kind of reaffirming that you are absolutely down the right path and you should just continue to push forward?
There's been a few, and the funny thing is, I've been writing
Yeah.
down like different stories or different interactions I've had with people. But
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I've gained a lot of great friendships and some partnerships. Um, I've learned a lot in the last 10 years, and the last 3 years have been extremely turbulent. But I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I think one of the major aha moments for me was I made a trip to LA in 2021, I believe. And I went to my
Mhm.
old gym. I trained with my old trainer and the owner of that gym, who's also a trainer.
Mhm.
And we had a conversation. And this is one of the things I like about the sport is we had a great conversation about what are you doing? How do you like it? How's things going? And this is a person who I
Mhm.
wouldn't expect to have as much interest or to be paying attention because when I lived in LA, I saw this person 3 or 4 times a day, right? He owned the gym that I trained at. He was, my trainer is now assisting for him. And before I left for Phoenix, I was at that gym quite a bit and I
Mhm.
was working with him, helping him with sparring, helping him with his fighters. And it was a really that was kind of an aha moment also when I stop and think about it. It's like, dude, I'm doing this. This person is calling me by name and telling me to do this.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like I'm face to face, right? And then to be away for a couple of years and come back and him to sit down and be like, hey, what's going on? How's this going? I'm looking at your social media and I see this. Like, tell me what's going on, right? And to have this
Yeah.
conversation, he goes, and he said to me, he goes, I've always known that you're a hard worker. He goes, and you're gonna make it work, right? And I was like, okay. And he's like, no matter what you do, you take a punch, you give a punch. He goes, and then one day you're not here. And I was like, okay, right? But for him to look at me and say, I've always known you're a hard worker, right? And for him to just acknowledge that he's been paying attention to what I've been doing and
Mm,
the struggle that I've been going through, and like to show that he cared, but then also say, keep going, right? You're
yeah.
doing it, right? That was probably the biggest aha moment that I've had in the last couple of years when it comes to just boxing. Um,
Yeah.
on the
That's
business
huge.
side of it,
I mean, that's
yeah,
massive.
on the business side of it, the aha moment I had, honestly, was the day that I moved out of my original location where you and I had met, because it
Hmm.
was completing something that I didn't think at the time I started was going to get completed. There was a lot
Right.
of stuff that happened, which could be a whole nother conversation. But being able to work my way through that lease for 3 years and
Hmm.
leave with my equipment and my dignity and knowing that I completed something. Um, it might not have been the ending that I wanted, but at least I got it done. I didn't give up. I didn't let circumstances overcome me. I didn't, to
Hmm.
a point, play victim, even though I was a victim of several things. I was able to endure
Sure.
and get through it. And I think that was the biggest thing.
Well, and I would also echo that from a business perspective, like something that I've seen just with you specifically is even closing that chapter or like, moving out of that space. The faces that I see every time I come to the new space that I know you're temporarily in until we get, the next chapter kind of started, it's the same people. Like you haven't lost a lot of your clientele. And I think that speaks very loudly about who you are as an individual, but also how you're received as a trainer. And I like receive that and I see that. And it's really
Yeah.
amazing for me, somebody that is so inconsistently like present, to see these same peoples, to see these similar programming. And I'm gonna give you a shout out that you always ask for me not to give you, but like you very much have cultivated this space where you are creating opportunities for all types of people, elderly, young kids, people with like illness and so forth. And I'm going to give you that to like, you can decide if you want to dive into it. But you really have made boxing accessible to a wide variety of people, including actual people that want to fight, right? And that's not always something that a lot of trainers can do. And I think it speaks to your skill set, but I think it also speaks to you as a business owner and the environments that you're creating and the impact that you're looking to have on the community. So I want to like call it out, give you your flowers. No doubt you've endured challenge, in your journey. My sense is that, the challenge that you experience that I know about you experiencing with this previous lease and this building and this partner, et cetera, has probably not been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome, in your professional career. I'm curious what it is.
The biggest challenge in my career, honestly, self-doubt,
Yeah.
right? Self-doubt or wanting or a need to try to fit into the role that
Hmm.
essentially in the fitness industry we are told that we need to fit into, um,
Right.
and really be comfortable with relying more about my substance as opposed to my surface, right? And I'm a
Hmm.
big guy. I played high school, 5A football and tried on a Division I football team. I lifted
Right.
weights my entire year or my entire life. And
Yeah.
I've been surrounded by the aesthetic that I should look a certain way or be a certain way in order to be quote unquote a trainer. And I've struggled
Hmm.
with that, and that doubt and that, you know, uh, has been probably my biggest hurdle, being comfortable in my own
Hmm.
skin, and relying
Hmm.
on what I know and not what I show. But at the same time, finding the consistency and discipline in myself to work to improve, right? So,
Right.
but also being able to relate to my clients who come in and saying, hey, listen, I don't have a six pack and a square jaw. I can still do push
Mhm.
ups. I can still do
Right.
squats. I can still spar 5 rounds, right? Because I've learned how to navigate myself, and be
Right.
healthy, right? even though I might not have the greatest aesthetic. Um, and I think
Hmm.
also, and I appreciate you the praise, although I'm not a huge praise person. It's not my love
Yeah, you
language.
hate
It
it.
makes me
It's
shout.
not your
I don't like it.
thing. But sometimes
Little
it's
for you.
necessary for people.
It is.
People should know.
But to your point, I think to your point, I think that the diversity of the people that you see in the gym and the diversity of the things that I offer is also based on my life and who I am as a person, and the diversity of people that I've had to interact with and work with and be friends with my entire life. Right. So, you
Hmm.
know, and to be honest with you, I love, my Parkinson's crew that comes in. I do that
I love
class.
them
It's a
too.
donation based class. Um, it's my hardest class, to be honest with you. And here's why it's my hardest class. I've been doing that class for 6 years now, and uh, it's hard to see my Parkinson's patients, deteriorate a little bit, be a little slower, and go through the
Yeah.
struggles that they go through as an elderly person. But I find real joy in the ability to bring them joy for that 30 minutes twice a week. Um, I
Hmm.
really enjoy that. I really get a lot of pleasure from that, while at the same time grappling with the double-edged sword of know that I'm losing some of my Parkinson's patients. It's heartbreaking to get texts from them when they've, oh, I fell and I'm going to miss a couple of days, and they're heartbroken when they have a mishap, but they're really trying to really better themselves and increase their you know quality of life while they can. And to me, being a part of that is
Right.
extremely important. Yeah.
It's so incredible to watch. It's like a friendly reminder every time, and I like so luckily get to see it every time too. But it is one of those things that, regardless if they were Parkinson's patients or just like elderly people in general, full stop, it doesn't matter, right? The breadth of
Yeah.
like where boxing can like cater to the body and the mind is like so impressive. And I always say this, and like some people don't always get it, but like I think while a lot of people are like, oh, you like do boxing, but you also teach yoga, like like they're very similar in terms of
Yes.
how they can empower the body, how they can cater to your mind, how they can like work to your nervous system, like how they can serve you as a human being. And so I
Yes.
think every time that I see it, it's not just me being like warm and fuzzy because I'm like, oh, look at like, look what he's doing. He's so cute. But it's also like, wow, look at the impact that this is having on these people because I see how they react. I see how they're like taking it all in. I love their energy coming into the room. I love their energy coming out of the room. And it's just, it like kind of like tokes a little thing in me. I'm like, "Ugh, yes, like I want to like stay with this until I'm like old and unable to like really move around the same way that I like move around right now because it's like just such an incredible thing that just helps like body mind connection in such an impressive way. And so, like, again, like, kudos to you, obviously, for doing it. A lot of people don't know that you do it. And I absolutely demanded in some ways that you tell people. So I'm glad that you're doing that here now. And
I'm working
I
on
hope
doing
that
it.
you'll, yeah. And listen, and it's not even being boastful. It's like really, it's a place of humility that you're offering such like an incredible service and just like being able to let people know that this is available and accessible to folks. But I always ask this if you could deduce down what drives you into a single word, what would that word be?
A single word: love.
Isn't that like an amazing thing for somebody that literally teaches people how to throw punches at other human beings that your word is love? Do you want to expand on it a little bit?
So it's funny because there is a interesting conflict in definition, and it can mean so many things. So when I say love, right, and this is going to sound, let me put this in the best way because I didn't practice this answer, right? But this is what I say. It just comes up. I love what I do. I love boxing as a sport, right?
Yeah,
I don't love the business of boxing, right?
I
I
know.
don't love
I know.
seeing Mike Tyson fight Jake Paul, right? I do love seeing um, Bud Crawford fight Earl Spence, because I love seeing two young men in the prime of their career put on a
Yeah.
good show, because they love the sport and they love their
Right.
fans, and their love for their own ability to test themselves pushes them to that.
I,
I love seeing people improve. I love being a part of that improvement. I love
right.
people, the fact that people allow me and trust me to be part of that process, or be part of that journey. Um, I love the ability to be able to empower someone with
Hmm.
more confidence, for someone to walk into my gym, to walk into the space and leave feeling better,
Right.
even though they might have felt horrible. I
Coming
love
into it.
seeing them realize that they can do more.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's, I love shocking people, if that sounds strange, but
No, makes
it's
sense
on
to me.
numerous occasions I've had to physically work out with my clients and do things, and they're like, "Oh, dude, did you just do that?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm athletic."
Yeah.
I love that. I love the humor. I love the story. I love the ability to be someone to lean on, and sometimes be the person, or be able to lean on someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes from a place of love, regardless of what it is. I
Right.
love the fact that
I
if
love that
needed, I can
answer.
be myself. Yeah,
I
it's
love
good.
it. I also think it yeah, I see that in every single thing that you do, even on days that maybe, I'm dying or not like up to like my best, or days where maybe you're like, a little bit, but you always bring it. Like you always bring the energy to the space. You always let me like leave the space feeling better. I mean, you can tell it's just so clear to me that you like love what you do. And there's like a high level of like passion and purpose behind everything it is that you're bringing to your space. So we could also like spin off and talk about the business of boxing a bit. But I mean, the reality is that without the Jake Pauls of the world and the Mike Tyson, strange Mike Tyson fights or random matchups, do you think like boxing might not have the same visibility or energy that it has today? Would you disagree with that?
I would not disagree with it. To be honest with you, I wouldn't. And I give, and I will, as you say, I will give
Necessary
Jake Paul
evils.
his flowers. Yes, yes. Because you know what? Listen, uh, they say no press is bad press, right? Um,
Right.
do I agree? Not all the time, but I think that the attention that these things have brought to the sport have broadened,
Right.
the appeal and the audience, which is necessary, because I believe boxing was going through a little bit of a decline, and still hasn't gotten back
Mm,
to the you know, status that it was at once. But then again, at the time, it really was one of the only shows, right? So when you
right.
didn't have the proliferation of MMA, kickboxing or whatever it was, specifically MMA, you didn't have that competition. When you don't have any competition, you're going to rule whatever your marketplace is, right? And if you do have
Right.
competition, it's going to be the quality of the product in which you present that establishes whether you have dominance in your marketplace. And I think the problem with
Hmm.
boxing for a while is that the quality of the product that they were putting out really wasn't, conducive to get people's attention the right way. But I
Right.
also, and it could vector off into a whole other conversation, where I think honestly, what you've seen in boxing is indicative of also what we've seen in society, where people
Society.
are more
Hmm.
excited about the sizzle, right, than they are about the steak. And I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
substance needs to be something that we really come back to and we really pay attention to. And if we have to take a detour for the sensational to come back to the substance, then I'm wholeheartedly about it, because I think at the end of the day, the substance is what matters. But I think the people who are
Sure.
about the substance have always been there, and they will remain there. And you will have the people who will come and go, like the snowbirds of
Hmm.
Arizona. They come for a little while, they enjoy it, they leave, and that's okay. But I think to be sustainable, you have to present a solid product and a solid outcome that people can get behind and
Right.
really endorse.
Right. Right. And I think it's people that like haven't taken the time to invest in the sport that get so super excited about the sizzle, about the big cards, like the bets, the all that stuff, right? I mean, and that's some of it's like very pure to like boxing in its original form, you know, like the big bets, like the big matchups, like all of that, very cool. But there is a subset of people that just don't know enough about the sport, haven't actually like gotten into the ring themselves. They that will never really understand why some of those more pure fights are like exciting and worth watching, downloading Showtime for versus just doing it when there's like some type of massive event that's getting publicized in the way that it's getting publicized. This is huge for Netflix. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This Jake Paul, Tyson fight for Netflix is massive for both fighters. They're going to make a ton of money. I think that it brings attention to the sport, which I only appreciate that for that. I definitely agree with you. There are some better matchups out there. There's more exciting fights out there that if people took time to like sit and actually understand the fight, look at the skill set that's involved in the fight, or just understand the sport, that they might get, a little bit more hyped up about. But totally
Yeah.
another conversation for another time. I completely agree with like the idea that society has just sensationalized a lot of things in life. That's why we see a lot of the boxing videos that are out there just being lots of like fancy mitt work, and I'm guilty of posting those as well, when there's so much more that goes into learning the sport and understanding how to be like actually competitive. I mean, what you don't see is like the foot drills, the moving around a ring so much so that your calves burn out, jumping rope for like an obscene amount of time, letting someone just hit you for like hours. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. And it's the reason why I'm so in love with the sport itself. I think it's just amazing. We could get, like geek out probably over it for a long time, but in nature of like where we're at in the conversation and the time that we have together, if you could just offer one piece of advice to anybody listening. It could be somebody that's trying down their entrepreneurial path. It could be somebody that's trying to take bets on themselves, whatever the case may be. What would be one piece of advice that you feel like should be heard and received?
For someone running or going down the entrepreneurial path, find a group of people who are successful, who have had many failures and who have had successes, and take notes. It doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a boxer, you're a baker, you're a car mechanic. Find the person who is, the number one person in your marketplace, whether it be your city, your online community, whatever your field is. Find that person and use them as a mentor. Bounce questions off of them. Ask them questions, specific things to your goal, because nothing beats experience, right? It doesn't matter, right? If you're starting off as a baker and you want to make amazing muffins, you find the person who makes the muffins that you think are the most amazing, and you go study with them. Find out what they do. Be the fly on the wall, right? And pay attention. That's the only thing that I would tell someone, entrepreneur or not. Find the person who is successful and take all the notes you can. Dive into the thing that you want to do and learn as much about it as you can. Find out who's in your marketplace. What are they doing? How can you do it better? What are they doing that's great? Cool. What can we do that's different and better? How do we take it to that next level? That's what you have to do. As an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a boxer, as a baker, as a mechanic, it doesn't matter the field. That's what you have to do. You have to be willing to take it to the next level, and you have to grind. You have to work. You have to put in the hours in the gym and outside of the gym. I have a trainer I work with, and she laughs because she catches me watching boxing videos, and she's like, "Do you do this all the time?" And I'm like, "Yep, I do. I watch boxing videos. I talk to other boxing coaches that I respect, via Instagram or via text or whatever it is. and I take notes and I listen and I
Yeah.
observe. And you put your own spin on it to make it yours, but that's all it is. It's study, study, study.
Yeah. I mean, it's a community at the end of the day, and you should feel like comfortable leaning on your community at any time. I think that's great
Absolutely.
advice. I am. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me in this kind of a forum. We always have our little chats while we're training, and I love every single time that we get together. It just makes me feel like I have a little piece of home, like in my other home, I guess, being just split between DC and Scottsdale, and feeling like both of them feel like home to me. So it's always such a pleasure to be able to like come into your space, and thank you for making me feel welcomed from the jump. And thank you for supporting me while I was trying to like make sure that I didn't get murdered in my fight, and it
Did
all worked
great.
out
You
because
did
we
great.
got a W. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But I will see you soon, and that's what makes me so excited is that every time I come back, I have the opportunity to kind of check
I
in
know. Is it
and
20
hang
some
out.
odd days
So
before you're back?
yeah, I'll be home soon. Get
All
ready.
right. Well, I appreciate you having me on. You've had some good guests on here, so I appreciate being in that company. It's nice.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people can learn from you, so I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.